Before you, you see a room full of treasure. Silver, gold, platinum coins glimmer at you. Chests full of magic items. And rubies the size of small dragons.
That's nice and all, but what about the copper pieces?
What are you holding back on us for?
Yeah, okay, there are several chests full of copper pieces too, I guess.
This is so exciting! We're gonna be as rich as kings and queens.
And Fat Cat can be the queen.
Yeah, that's great. So, how are you gonna carry it all?
How we always do. We put it in our backpacks.
And how are you going to do that? There is far too much here for you all to carry.
Oh, come on, Mr. Dungeon Master, sir. Don't you know that players hate screwing around with carrying capacity and encumbrance?
Even Fat Cat has a bag of holding in her stomach.
You know, back in my day, half of the fun of playing D&D was figuring out how to carry all of the copper pieces back to town.
Well, you know what, old man? That sucks, and you suck.
Even if you won't stay dead, at least shut your mouth. You know what? I'm about sick of the newbie siding with our dungeon master. Right on. Let's hope he stays dead this time.
Now, Mr. Dungeon Master, is there still too much treasure for us to carry back to town?
No, it's not a problem at all. Welcome to the DM Lair. I'm Luke Hart, and I've been in Dungeon Master since high school. On this channel, I give practical Dungeon Master advice that you can implement at your game table. Today in the Lair, we're going to be talking about carrying capacity and encumbrance, something that I'm sure everybody just loves to death. like probably not. Actually, despite how biased I just made myself sound, I am going to give this as fair treatment as I possibly can. We're going to cover 4 things: the advantages of using carrying capacity and encumbrance, the disadvantages of using them, different approaches to tracking carrying capacity in your game, and how to determine whether or not you should track it, because sometimes it's not a bad idea to do so. I'm also going to talk a little bit about the revised carrying capacity mechanic that I myself developed as a sort of middle ground between rules-heavy tracking and the ease of not tracking it. There's a link below where you can grab my revised carrying capacity rules for free on DriveThruRPG, and it basically gives Dungeon Masters a way to implement carrying capacity without making it too tedious for their players. Oh, and don't forget, I have live streams every Monday and Wednesday and Friday if you want to ask any questions or just hang out. A link to my Twitch channel is conveniently placed below. All right, let's do this. For anyone not aware of this whole carrying capacity and encumbrance thing and how it works, carrying capacity is basically a limit of what your character can carry in the game, and the idea is that you would keep track of everything you're carrying and how much it weighs, and keep the total weight added up. That sounds like fun now, doesn't it? And then encumbrance is a mechanic whereby if you are carrying too much stuff based on your character's strength score, you might suffer disadvantages such as decreased movement, hernias, spinal hemorrhaging, and ultimately death. Now, I may have just made some of those things up, so you should probably look up the rules for it in the player handbook to, keep me honest. Advantages of tracking carrying capacity and enforcing encumbrance. The number 1 advantage is realism. So if that's something that's important to you in your role-playing game, this is an important consideration. Does it break verisimilitude when all the PCs are carrying around entire dungeons on their backs? Does it get your goat, annoy the crap out of you? The fact is that for many players, realism is a super important consideration, and thus carrying capacity and encumbrance is huge for them. That's like a play on pun. All right, just keep going. Next, some players really enjoy tracking carrying capacity and enforcing encumbrance. Now, I will never be able to fully understand why personally, but I do recognize that all people are different and have their own personalities and preferences. So some players do really enjoy it, and I've always been of the opinion that if your players like something, Dungeon Masters should strongly consider including it as part of their game. And vice versa, of course. Dungeon Masters like it, you put it in your game.
Well, in that case, the old man commoner can track his carrying capacity, and the rest of us don't need to.
But, how much carrying capacity does a corpse have?
Next, and I feel like this is actually a good point in favor of tracking carrying capacity, it makes dumping strength less desirable and gives wizard players and others a reason to have a higher strength score. So if you want strength to be more meaningful in the game, this is one way to do it. However, I will say that if you're going to try to fix the issue of dumping strength, you should probably address the issue of dumping all of the other ability scores too, and make sure you're being fair to all of your players. What do you think? Is addressing the issue of dumping ability scores and how to make all ability scores more meaningful to all classes a decent topic for a future video? Or would I just be wasting my time? I feel like I'm probably not the first person to be like, oh, let me fix this. Finally, using carrying capacity rules incentivizes more role-playing. Your players need to consider questions like what things they're going to take with them on their adventures and what things they're going to leave behind at their base. And how are they going to protect their massive store of loot at their base from would-be thieves? Do they need pack animals for their adventures to be able to carry treasure hoards back to town? How will they protect their mules from the wizard when they cast Fireball? You know, basic considerations like that. Disadvantages of tracking carrying capacity and enforcing encumbrance. Okay, I started this off by being nice to carrying capacity and encumbrance by talking about its advantages. But now I'm going to speak from the heart. It's disadvantage time. Number one, holy crap, is tracking carrying capacity tedious and boring and not fun. I was once in a Curse of Strahd game where the DM wanted us to track everything we were carrying and total weight and then use the encumbrance rules. Yeah, it sucked. Actually, there was a lot about that game that sucked, but let's just save that little rant for a live stream or something, shall we? Anyway, thankfully, he forgot about it after a session or two, and the topic never came up again, and I just sort of, well, stopped tracking it. Thankfully, the DM never found out, or I'm sure he would have murdered my PC in some spectacular fashion, because, yeah, that's pretty much what he liked to do with our group. Over and over and over again. The only group I've ever been in where I've rolled up a new character twice in the same game session. It's not that I was trying to cheat or anything, but tracking that crap is just not fun. Well, for me at least, and honestly, what I think is probably the majority of players. I could be wrong, of course. I didn't poll everyone in the world. In my opinion, carrying capacity rules emphasize realism and complexity over game design and ease of play. In a word, it is slow, boring, and complicated. I guess that's 3 words, but yeah. And another glaring drawback, the time it takes to track it. Unless you're in a virtual tabletop like Fantasy Grounds or have deep enough pockets to afford D&D Beyond, it's a manual process that takes time at the table. And if your players don't enjoy using carrying capacity, do you really want to use table time on it? Would you as a dungeon master rather spend game time doing things players enjoy? Like isn't that a better way to spend the 4 hours that you have? Well, I suppose that if you didn't prepare for the game session, are freaking out, and just need to kill time, then sure, making them add up the weight of everything that they're carrying, see that it's too much, and then spend an hour or so deciding what to get rid of and where to stash it. Yeah, that sounds like some solid busy work you could give your players to stall for time. Next, I mentioned that one of the advantages of using carrying capacity is that it incentivizes role-playing, what to carry, where to stash extra, how to protect it, whether to take mules. But I would question whether that's the best role-playing to incentivize. Like, with a world full of, hopefully, interesting NPCs and exciting locations and dungeons to explore, do we really want to role-play carrying stuff? Like really? Is that the exciting, amazing game experience dungeon masters want to deliver for their players? Is it? Oh, and one final jab at carrying capacity. The rules aren't even that realistic. Like, if one major reason to even do it is to enforce a sense of realism in the game, I feel like we got some work to do. Can I really carry around 100 pounds of bread in my backpack? Like, that would be cool. With some cheese and crackers, some sausage. Oh, I'm hungry now. Crap. And following that line of reasoning leads us to developing even more complex carrying capacity rules, which leads to more tedium and more boring. And I'd rather not go that route. Different approaches for enforcing carrying capacity. Okay, now, as much as I just heavily bashed the idea of tracking carrying capacity, I don't totally ignore it in my games. So let's discuss the various ways dungeon masters can implement carrying capacity tracking depending on their preferences and their players' preferences. First is the tried and true, play it by the book, add up the weight of everything you're carrying method. Yep, got it. Simple and rules heavy, but it might be right for you. Next, at the other end of the gamut is the method I feel many groups use, ignore it completely, or the Dungeon Master just gives the group a bag of holding very early in the game so they can justify ignoring carrying capacity. But I mean, honestly, what's the point? I think it's perfectly fine for the Dungeon Master to say, you know what guys, tracking carrying capacity really sucks. We're just not going to do it in my game.
You're my most favoriteest Dungeon Master ever. Look, even the old man agrees.
And then somewhere in the middle of those two extremes is what I personally like to use. Just be reasonable. No, I'm not going to make you track how many rations and copper pieces you're carrying. And I don't care if you have a collection of 5 great swords just for fun. However, if you start looting every single suit of armor from every single bad guy, I might start asking how you can possibly carry around 37 suits of plate mail. I'm sure I've had players that have done that before. And then I realized it and I was like, ah? And they were like, yeah, this is pretty unreasonable. Or if you come across a library full of hundreds of ancient, priceless books, I might question how the heck you plan to carry a library on your back. But as long as we don't reach the absolute extremes of ridiculosity, I really don't care. I'm going to focus our game time on things that are actually fun for us all. And counting beans does not lie within the realm of what I, or most other players for that matter, consider to be fun. So we're not gonna do it. Now, another approach besides just adding up weight is to use a system specially designed for tracking carrying capacity, such as my revised carrying capacity rules. The gist of my system is that only heavier things are tracked and you use slots to carry items. The number of small, medium, and large slots you get are determined by your strength score, and all characters have a base number of slots to ensure they don't get totally screwed. My goal with this system was to give Dungeon Masters and players a way to track carrying capacity in as simple a way as possible and not have it be too rules heavy or burdensome for the players. I spent the last few months playtesting and tweaking the rules, and I think they're at a good point for you all to use if you're interested. They are available as pay what you want on DriveThruRPG, so you can download them for free at no risk if you want to check them out. Link below. Should you track carrying capacity? Now look, as much as I just bashed tracking it, there isn't necessarily a right answer here. Ultimately, the overriding question is this: does tracking carrying capacity and encumbrance enhance the overall gaming experience for your group? What's the style of the game? A gritty survival game that emphasizes resource management, or a Monty Hall game where the characters are powerful heroes? What do the players prefer? What does the DM prefer? These are all important considerations for the Dungeon Master before deciding how to do this. If the answer is yes, tracking carrying capacity does enhance our overall gaming experience, then consider doing it. And if the answer is a resounding no, then feel free to take a pass. Don't forget to follow me over on Twitch for some chill live streams where we hang out, talk D&D, and even paint minis together. Let me know if you track carrying capacity in your games and how you do it. Next week, I'll be discussing the top reason D&D games can suck and how to fix them. But until then, click right here to learn about my homebrew initiative system. And until next time, let's play D&D.